Part 1. Be me, 15 years old or so. Go hunting with my dad, couple of his brothers and grandpa. They love doing this, but I rather not spend nights in the jungle with mosquitoes, snakes, etc. Family owns land in the jungle, somewhere in Pick related. There's a 2 stories wooden cabin uphill from a creek in a valley where we hunt peccary, lowland paca, and deer. It takes 2 hours to walk to the cabin where dogs and local hunters we are friends are waiting for us. It's a clear sky with full moon. We split to different game trails in the valley. I'm in a hammock high up a tree and my dad sitting in a branch next to me with a rifle. We all have walkie-talkies as to warn each other if we see something. Suddenly the dogs start barking and we think they found game. Everybody's on alert. I don't have a gun because kid, but I have binoculars and a good overview of the valley. Suddenly I hear a loud metallic sound, like a large rusty machine moving about. I notice my dad hears it too and he asks me to give him the walkie-talkie. As he is about to ask if anybody heard it, the dogs go silent. My youngest uncle comes through the walkie-talkies and says,
"Hey Anon bro, do you see that light over the creek?"
He's on the opposite side of the valley so he can see farther to the east of the valley from where we are. Oldest uncle replies,
"Fuck yes, look, it's hovering over the creek. Do you hear the dogs?"
Dad and I are listening to the conversation and suddenly the light starts to pass in front of us. It slowly hovers over the creek, as if it's following its path. The light is bright white and shines the entire forest like an LED lamp pointing towards small grass. Part 2 with crucifix pick related. The light makes that metallic sound but not as loud as it did when it showed up. It hovers over our cabin/hut for a few seconds and continues down the creek path. The guy running behind the dogs down the valley comes in and says,
"Hey, who was shining that light? The dogs are scared shitless."
He thinks they saw a tiger or puma or something. By tiger I mean a small kind of tiger. Don't picture a Bengal tiger PLS. Youngest uncle tells him,
"It wasn't us. Something just flew down the creek. Anon bro, did you guys see it?"
Dad replies,
"Yes, we saw it."
My dad and uncles talk for a bit about what to do. Dad wants to return to the cabin because of me. The dogs are scared and crying and won't help with the hunt anymore, so we all come down our spots and towards the cabin. When we get to the cabin there's a strange smell of burnt metal, but everything is in place. It had been maybe 30 to 45 minutes since the light was there. Eventually fall asleep in my hammock and return to the city the next morning. Nothing else happened that night, but everybody was on edge, especially the local who owned the hunting dogs. He had raised them since puppies and he knows they were not afraid of just anything, and not all of them at the same time afraid of the same thing. They all told hunting stories of weird shit that happened to them. Only in 2020 I saw lights like these again, but not exactly similar. Be me, 16 years old. We've been living in Panama City for 10 years now. After renting all this time, we move into our own house in the suburbs towards the west. Spend a lot of time studying because I go to an old renowned private high school where most subjects are taught in English. My room's desk is placed in front of a window, pick absolutely related. I have a rosary hanging from one of the things you spin to open and close the glass windows, pick related. It's a short, metal rosary my grandma gave me at some point. It doesn't have all the beads, I think just 5 or so. It hangs there and it can't fall because it's like a hook to it. One day I'm studying there in the afternoon and as I sit there, a strong shit smell comes through. Think it's the plumbing or something, as they're still building new houses down the road from my place, so trucks come and go all day. Immediately as I lift my head up, the rosary flings through the air 2-3 towards the door as if somebody had taken it and thrown it. I look at where it is now, thinking to myself, what the fuck lol. Come out of the room and tell mom, who thinks I should pray more, and we put the rosary back in its place. I didn't feel uneasy or anything when it happened. I'm not a devout Christian, but I respect religious beliefs. Be 17 years old. Having dinner with my parents and my little bro, he's 3 years old. Mum finishes and sits in the living room. I'm sitting in front of my brother and my dad between us at the top of the table. Dinner table top is made of glass, this time it doesn't have sheets on top because they're being washed or something. My dad and I are talking while my little bro is eating his dinner slowly. In the middle of our conversation, my dad and I notice my brother's plastic cup of water starts floating in the air. About 10 to 15 centimeters into the air. Dad and I stop talking and immediately look at the cup. It starts rotating clockwise in the air and begins moving to the side at the same altitude. We're in awe looking at this cup moving while my bro is heading down eating and Mum is watching the TV. After a few seconds that felt like minutes, the cup stops in the air and drops slowly on the dinner table. Dad looks at me and says,
Hey, your brother has telepathic powers,
My mom asks what we're talking about and we tell her, and she immediately grabs my bro and holds him because she's scared. Dad and I aren't scared but amazed at what just happened, especially because he and I knew that we saw it clearly happen. The only non-paranormal explanation I could come up with was that maybe the water under the cup, due to condensation, and the glass top of the dinner table made the illusion that it had moved. However, there was no water between the point where the cup lifted into the air and the point where it was dropped down. Something moved it in front of us, possibly the same thing that messed with me before and after this event.
Thanks for sharing, Anon. You have a nice writing style. Made me chuckle more than once despite the spooks. If you have more, I'd be interested in reading.
Glad you like them. Part 1. Be me, 18 years old. Working at a call center for XM radio. Back then you could get call center jobs easy in Panama if you spoke English. I have the late shift at some point, so I'm coming back home at about 10:30 p.m. Parents and little brother are away visiting family at the other side of the country where we used to live, so I'm alone for a long weekend. South Park is on at 11 p.m. on MTV, so when I get home I turn on the living room TV and watch it while I prepare something to eat and lurk on /b/. Place the 2 remote controllers on the sofa seat, TV, and cable box. It's very important to note here that the sofa is made of leatherette and the buttons of the remote controllers are made of that rubbery, plastic material. What I'm trying to get here is that if you place the remote controller's buttons down on the sofa, they won't slide and fall because of grip. All the lights are off except for the TV and the kitchen, which overlooks the living room. As I'm preparing dinner and watching South Park, I hear a remote controller fall from the sofa. I think to myself, that's weird. I put it on the sofa but I'm not sure how I did it, buttons up or down. Walk to the living room and find one of the remotes on the floor, in front of the sofa. Grab it and put it back in the sofa, not minding what just happened too much. Part 2. The next night, same routine when I come home. Turn on the TV, but this time I absolutely make sure to shove both remotes between the cushions of the sofa so they won't fall while I'm cooking. As I'm cooking, the fucking sound of the remote controller falling into the floor, quite hard this time. Chills down my spine.exe. Leave everything behind and walk to my room, turning all the lights on as I do. Start telling my buddies on MSN what just happened. Super scared to leave the house now because I'd have to walk past the sofa. Wake up the next morning, go to the living room. The remote was on the floor behind the fucking sofa, under the dinner table at a distance of 2-3 m. Shitmapants.exe. Something threw the remote so hard the batteries had gone all over the place and it was a little smashed. This one always bugged me because I knew I put the remotes in a position where they absolutely couldn't have fallen off by themselves. And the second time it happened, it didn't fall in front of the sofa but behind whatever did it. Wanted me to know it did it. July 25, 2020, Ljubljana. Having a drink with wife and friends by the river near the Dragon Bridge. At around 11 p.m. we decide to return home. Stop by the traffic lights right by the Dragon Bridge. Wife, who's a hardcore scully in the relationship, tells me,
Anon, what are those lights?
Immediately I look up, as well as maybe 9 other people waiting to cross the road. 2 large wobbling white lights coming from the city castle. They shine a very bright cone of white light randomly in all directions as they float by. Altitude of about 100-150 m, completely silent, no wind or noise. Everybody at the crossing is dumbfounded by these, including me. Tell myself I'm looking at a UFO right now, damn yes. The light changes to green and I step out of the feeling of awe. Take out my phone, shitty Pixel 2, and start recording maybe 10 to 15 seconds after they pass over us. The lights are already flying over some buildings, so I try to follow the road home while finding a crack between the buildings to record them. Look back and everybody's still looking out for them at the crossing. Cycle down the road parallel to the river while recording. People by the river are standing up looking at the lights as they go up and up. They eventually fly higher than a passenger plane that passes by and disappear in the sky. VID related. My buddy who's into drones says they're probably drones, but really, 11 p.m, pandemic, LJ of all places. Had it been fucking Shanghai or Berlin maybe, but not this town city. Plus a drone that could shine lights so bright like that, imagine stadium lights, would have to be expensive, and fly it up to space. A few weeks ago my wife saw similar lights flying around a nuclear reactor, while she was driving in the evening, 9 p.m. Could have been aircraft since there's an airfield nearby, and she agrees, but they moved very quickly in all directions unlike helicopters, which we see from our balcony every day when they land at the hospital.